Hi guys, my name is Samantha Holbrook. I am the owner and beekeeper of HoneyBee. I specialize in chemical-free beekeeping as well as energetic or spiritual beekeeping. And I am going to show you guys what a Langstroth hive is composed of. Right? So we're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. To begin, I do not have any blocks or hive stands, but what you want to start with at the very base on the ground is either 4 cinder blocks or a hive stand. And what this is going to do is allow the hive to be elevated off of the ground. And so when the bees leave the hive, they can get lift out that front door. And it's going to be easier for the mortuary bees to take the dead bees out of the hive and get rid of them. They like clean spaces, so the more lift they can get to carry away those dead bees, the better off they are. Okay. So, after your hive stand or your cinder blocks or whatever you're setting your hive on, a Langstroth hive is composed of a landing board or a bottom board, which looks like this. This one is obviously used, and you can see there is a little lip there where the sides are higher than the main body here, and this is going to be the entrance where the bees come in and out of the hive. So I'm just going to move this a little closer so we can put this here. Okay. After that, you're going to have a hive body. There are 2 sizes of Langstroth hives you can do. You can do an 8 frame, which is great for smaller people such as myself, because it's going to be a little bit lighter, less stuff in the actual box, less room for stuff in the box. Or you can do a 10 frame, which is really typical. That's what I would recommend to start out with, unless you're really concerned about the weight. And that is because 10 frames are the most universal. You can find, it's the most easy to mix and match with, right? However, if you start with 8 frame, stay with 8 frame. If you start with 10 frame, stay with 10 frame. That way all of your equipment is interchangeable. That is not a must, it's just a recommendation. So our first box, these guys are called deeps. Again, this is used equipment, so please excuse my duct tape here. But this fits on the hive bottom, the bottom board, like so. And then that lines up perfectly, so you have this beautiful little gap here at the bottom. Can you see that? So you have this entrance for the bees. This is your first deep. Within every deep, you have your frames. That one's stuck. Let's see. Nice. Okay, so this frame needs cleaned. This has old comb and brood left in it, so it needs cleaned out. But what you're going to do is you're going to have 10 of these. The frame refers to the wooden rectangle that creates this, right? And this is why the Langstroth hive is known for, realistically, because Mr. Langstroth created bee space on every side of this so that the bees can pass through, but they're not necessarily attaching it to the walls of the hive, which has created ease of moving these guys in and out of the hive for beekeepers. So these slide into your deep, and depending if you have a 10 frame or an 8 frame, it's going to depend if you have 10 or 8 frames, right? So back to the deep. When you're looking at the deep, so this has a frame that is actually stuck in here. So what you have on the side though is a little lip, and this little lip is what catches those frames. and allows them to hang in your deep. And they are called deeps because they're literally deeper boxes than some of the other sizes. Okay, so your first box is going to be your brood chamber, or where all the baby bees are typically. So this one always, always, always stays on the hive. Perfect. Okay, and then you're going to have, at least in Colorado, because we have colder weather, you are going to have a second deep. Beautiful, and that goes on just like that. And you can see I have a little chip here. That's something that you would want to fix, or at least address if I was going to use these boxes. But 2 deeps is standard for Colorado weather, and that is because the second deep is what houses most of their food storage through the winter. So if you live in a really wet climate, subtropical or Florida-like, where you have relatively good weather all year round and there's continuously more food for the bees to collect, I don't know that this is necessary. I don't beekeep in Florida, so it's hard for me to say. When I visited, the beekeepers in Florida did have 2 deeps as well. And that does also help with colony size too, right? Because if the bees have enough space, they're less likely to split and swarm. And so this kind of reduces that by giving them enough space that they can grow into it, instead of saying, oh my God, the house is full, we got to get out of here, right? So you are going to fill both of these with 10 frames each. Again, if you have 8 frame hives, you're going to do 8 frames each, but this is a total of 20 frames. Okay, so frames. This is a super frame, honey super, and it is much more shallow than the deep frames would be, right, height-wise. But to just give you an example, this is the frame, this is a foundation. And what this is this is a piece of plastic with honeycomb print embossed on it, right? And then coated in a thin layer of wax. And what you can do as a beekeeper is you can put this foundation inside this frame. You can get frames with little tiny grooves in it to hold that foundation, and it creates a roadmap for the bees. These are really, really awesome as a first-time beekeeper because it saves you a lot of trouble. It tells the bees exactly what you want, and typically they'll follow your instructions. I recommend making your own decision about that as you get more advanced into beekeeping. For a lot of reasons, and I'm not going to get into that right now because we're talking about equipment. So you can go either way on that. You can go no frame, you can go foundationless, you can do foundation, you can do half and half, you can cut these so that they're, you know, a little bit shorter and just create a guideline at the top there if you want. Tons of options, tons of options. It doesn't matter what you do. It matters if you like it or not, and if your bees like it or not. So, all right, after we have that, the 2 deeps on, it depends what season you're in. So if you are in spring and you're just getting your colony established, you probably want to stop right here until they get these filled out. And then once you do that, you would add a honey super, which I do not currently have access to. I will have to pull one out here in just a moment. But the application for the top, the cover, is going to be the same whether you have a honey super on it or not. So let's get into that. So You can add as many boxes as you want. There's no limit. There's no right or wrong way. That is up to you. But once you have decided that that is enough space for the bees, you have what's called an inner cover, okay? And it has this little ventilation hole here. And it looks just like this. And some of them have ventilation or entrance holes on the sides. Mine doesn't. So we're just going to set that on like so. Right? So your inner cover. And then this is your outer cover. And mine is stained, again, because all my equipment is used right now. But this is what it looks like. And it is covered in tin to wick water, and it goes right on top like that. Cool, right? So that is your hive. That is the basics of a Langstroth hive. There are a lot of additions, adjustments, ways you can do this. Typically, with a colony, I recommend an entrance reducer, which I don't have any of with me right now, but it is essentially a piece of wood with two options for entrance size, right? One's itty bitty, one's, I think it's 2.5 inches, 3 inches, and you just stick it right in here, and it allows the bees to have less space to have to guard. It also keeps out a draft if you have heavy winds or if you live in a climate like I do. Yeah, so one other thing to think about is when you're setting up these hives, you typically want the back of the hive to be just a smidgen higher than the front, so that if water does get into your hive, it's going to run out the front instead of pooling in the bottom and getting your bees wet. So I hope this helps. Please let me know what questions you have. I would love to answer those. And if you are interested in a beekeeping class or getting started with bees, check out my other videos. You can get in touch with me. I have classes going all the time. Have an excellent day.